Hi everybody, welcome back to the MOOC. Uh, my name is Scott Petrie, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a product called PaperRater that I have been experimenting with in my classroom. It is an automated essay scoring system. It is free, which is one of my favorite four-letter words to use as a teacher. And I have collected data from about 115, 115 ninth and 10th grade students have submitted multiple pieces of writing to PaperRater, and I'll be presenting this. I actually am correlating those scores, the PaperRater scores and feedback, to their California high school exit exam scores, because they have to write an essay to pass the California high school exit exam, at least for another year or two. So I took my students' scores, I took their PaperRater scores, I'm comparing the two of them, and we're going to see how worthwhile PaperRater really is. So, if you go to the website, www.paperrater.com, you will see that it is a web-based tool. It does free online proofreading, it does grammar and spelling check, it does plagiarism detection, and the best thing is it gives suggestions to the students. So now I don't have to read 190 really lousy essays that make me want to kill myself or perhaps consider a new career. Instead, I get the PaperRater report, and then the student comes to me and says, well, how do I do this? PaperRater's telling me I have to do these 5 things. How do I do these? So I want to take you through a sample report in this little tutorial. There is a link on the blog to not only several of my students' projects with their PaperRater reports, but there's also a link to a little video that shows you how to use PaperRater. What I really like about it is there's a feature that lets you select the type of paper it is, whether it's an argumentative paper, whether it's a research paper, whether it's an essay, whether it's a speech, and it runs different tests for different types of writing. And then the other cool thing it does is you select your grade level, and then PaperRater compares your writing to other people in your grade level, and you get back some real data. So this is the first section that the student sees when they run a report. PaperRater truncates the first part of their writing. So what you really need to do is make sure in the first 2 lines of your student's paper, they have their name and class period. What I try to do is I have them do last name first, and then first name, and then I actually, before they put their names, I have them put the class period. So it'll say period 2, Petrie-S, and that way I can alphabetize them really quickly for my grade book if I need to. So it summarizes it so you have an idea whose paper it is. And usually on this screen, you'll see a little clip that talks about plagiarism detection. Oh, no, here it is. It's on this screen. So it will run a test, and it will tell you what % of your work has been matched to other sources on the web. This one was a speech, and I found with a lot of my speeches that there weren't real big detection, signs of matched content. Students were changing it so that it was more reflective of speech. They weren't reading it right out of the encyclopedia. So they got relatively high work on originality. I did tell the students, I did set a goal for them. I said if it is below a 75%, I will not read it. You have to get it to 75, 80% before I will read it. And then you can also click here on this this link right here, and it shows you how to make some citations and how to improve your scores with the originality detection. So the next feature that PaperRater offers is spelling and grammar checks. And I did a big extensive project with my students where they took 3 in-class writing assignments. We went to the computer lab. I showed them how to use headings and type up a big 5-page paper on the Cold War. And I had students who passed in their PaperRater reviews, did not change one word. did not even correct a spelling mistake or a grammatical mistake. And the nice thing about PaperRater is they're printing this out, they're also printing out their paper. So you can look at PaperRater report before you look at their paper. And I just said, hey, what's going on here? You haven't even changed a word. You know, the computer is telling you what you need to fix and you're not fixing it. So make sure your students know that you are going to be looking for this. The object of using a tool like this is it gives them specific feedback on how to improve their writing. And if they're not willing to go through the revision process, then they're going to get a very low score. So this next segment looks at word choice, and it compares how you did as a 9th grader or a 10th grader. It calls them bad phrases. I would rather they call this weak writing. I'm sorry, I'm using my laser pointer instead of my mouse. I would rather, instead of bad phrasing, they call this cliches, they call this common phrases, because what you want in student writing is originality, a good voice, and if they're just cutting stuff out of the book and they're just using the average cliches and saying, so this, so that, then it's not going to be very exciting writing. But I do like how PaperRater tells you, compared to all the other 9th grade papers we've looked at, you are 70%. You're in the 70th percentile of people in your education level. So you're doing better than, 2/3 of the people that are writing and turning in these words. And so there's usually some feedback down here too. Now I've noticed that they list the phrases that they tell you to avoid, which is good because that gives the students some direct feedback. So the next thing PaperRater looks at is the writing style. And it gives it a traditional word score, and it also, again, ranks you on percentile. So this is talking about transitional phrases. I'm sorry, did I say traditional? I meant transitional. So it looks at your transition phrases, your therefores, so thens, all of this that kind of tells the reader, hey, I'm about to say something important here. So, and this person does not have a lot of transitions. They're below average. 11%, they're only doing as well as 11% of the people who've turned in work. So that means, what, 89% of the people who turned in their work are doing better than you. So what happens is when a student comes to me with this feedback, I can say, all right, here's a worksheet, here's some transitional phrases, let's go through your paper and see where your paper could benefit from adding these transitional phrases. And what this does is it teaches students that, hey, if you're a good writer, what you do is you focus your revisions. You're going to do one pass on just transitional phrases. You're going to do one pass on just the weak phrases and weak wording, the cliches and the trite phrases. So PaperRater shows them very clearly and compares them to their peers and lets them know how they're doing, which is something that I've always struggled with as a teacher. So the next variable it looks at is the sentence length and the number of sentences in your work. I have noticed that when it tries to count up your short sentences and your long sentences, this does not always work. This is kind of interesting. There's 7 words as a variation in the sentence. I don't know what this is worth to a history teacher. When I read students' work, I'm looking for certain historical facts, certain amounts of content. I'm looking at, are they defining their terms? Are they citing sources? But this is interesting, and when you get a large sample of students, you can kind of compare them. So this student has a very short essay, 13 sentences, average length of 23. It's kind of interesting. In my little study, I've got 115 students that submitted work, and I think the average length of a sentence was about 18 words. So I don't know what that's like. I can just say that 115 ninth graders at Kennedy High School are turning in, essays that have sentences that are approximately 18 words. So the next variable is the use of academic vocabulary, which you know from earlier modules in Corbin's lecture that Social studies is 55% of a student's academic vocabulary. So this is something that we need to focus on as teachers, and PaperRater really helps us shine the light on academic vocab. So this person got a 34. They're doing equal or better than 69% of the people in their education level or age group or grade level, however you want to phrase that. Which means that, 31% are doing better than them. So they have some pretty good vocabulary words. What I do like is there's a vocabulary builder tool down here that you can click on, and then students can go and they can learn new words. You can also just, again, set a goal for them here, and you can say, look, I want you to look up 5 new vocabulary words from the chapter and make sure you put them in this essay. Let's see if your score improves. And what's nice about PaperRater is the students actually want to try and game the system. So it becomes a game with, well, if I change 5 words, does my score change? Well, how about if I change 10 words? If I add 15 new vocabulary words, does my score change? How much does it change? And you know these kids, they get really super excited about this, and they really love it when they think that they're pulling something over on you and they're cheating. But the whole goal of a program like that is to get them to understand that good writers revise their product. So next we talk about PaperRater gives it an overall grade. And they warn you quite effusively that this is not a complete grade. The teacher should not be relying on this. But this student got a 77, which is a C. You'll find that most of the grades are between the C and the B range because it's a program that sort of averages things and relies on averages. So I have had students get as low as 62, and I have students get as high as 96. I have never had anybody get more than a 96. So what I do is I make this a revision. So people are they do their writing in class, and then they go home. I give them a score on effort. I give them a score on the number of words they put on the page within the hour that they had in class. I grade them only against their class, not against all my classes, but against their class. And then they get to go home and they get to type it up and run it through the PaperRater. And then they bring that report back into me, and we start having conversations about how do we make this essay better, and what are going to be our steps for improvement. So I'm going to wrap it up here, but I want to call your attention to my little study. I collected 115 essay scores that I ran through the PaperRater. My students did. Average originality is about 89%, which is good. The poor phrasing is about 55 percentile, about the 55th percentile. Transitionary phrases, students scoring fairly low, below the mean here, in the 45th percentile. Their number of sentences per essay it looks like 33 sentences. In the average length of those sentences, like I said, about 18. The approximate words per essay, 568. And then the percentile of their grade level vocabulary words is at the 55th percentile, so there's room for improvement there. And their overall score, grade-wise, is coming out to about an 80. So I'm not really sure. I haven't taken the time to look at the essays that I hand grade. And again, I very rarely give them a score of 100 points on that. I usually use a rubric, and I usually only grade for 1 or 2 different things. But it would be interesting if I had to give them a 100-point score, how often would I agree with PaperRater? But as they say in graduate school, that is for another study, not this study. So here's one of my favorite slides. This is based on Schmoker's work. I think this might be Linda Darling Hammond. I'm sorry I did not cite it properly. I'm a bad teacher. But if we want to make students college and career ready, then we need to dramatically increase the amount of writing assigned to students across all subjects in high school. And I totally agree with this. It goes right into what Carol Jago says, that texting and tweeting 140 characters, as much as it's fun and I love it, I love the Twitter, I love doing little tweet-a-thons in class and 6-word definitions, but it does not do anything to prepare the kids for the type of writing they're going to do in college. And I always tell my ninth graders, in my class, you're getting 10 or 15 quizzes per semester. You're writing 8 essays. You're doing another 4 projects. There's plenty of times for you to, there's plenty of opportunities